What is the true price of a single devastating choice? Picture the most important day of your life, a flawless designer gown, hundreds of expectant guests, and the promise of a perfect future shimmering before you. Now imagine that entire world shattering in an instant because of one shocking act. This story isn't a fairy tale. It's a brutal look at reality, where love is put to the ultimate test, and the cost of failure is unbearably high. Are you prepared to discover the truth hidden behind the facade of a perfect wedding? Brace yourself, because the final twist in this story will force you to question everything you thought you knew about loyalty, greed, and the human heart. Amelia Sterling, known to her friends as Mia, always knew what she wanted. As the only daughter of Richard and Eleanor Sterling, owners of a prestigious plus-size boutique on Madison Avenue, she was raised in the heart of New York City's elite society. Her life was a curated collection of runway shows, dinners at exclusive Soho restaurants, and a degree from the Parsons School of Design. Her parents wanted only one thing for her, a suitable match who could secure her future. And Ethan Vance seemed to be exactly that. He was successful, impossibly charming, and from a family of immense wealth. He courted her with lavish gifts and promised a future that looked like the cover of a magazine. Their wedding was meant to be the social event of the season, a spectacular union of two powerful families. At least that's what Mia and everyone else believed. The heavy silk of the Vera Wang gown felt like a weight on Amelia's shoulders. The crisp autumn air over Central Park was thick with the scent of expensive perfume and thousands of white gardenias, making her head spin slightly. She stood at the top of the grand steps of Bethesda Terrace, her heart hammering against her ribs so violently she was sure the entire wedding party could hear it. 15 minutes past the ceremony's start time. 15 minutes, and Ethan was nowhere to be seen. The guests, a sea of couture and tailored suits, murmured amongst themselves, their sympathetic glances feeling more like daggers. Her bridesmaids nervously adjusted their own makeup, shifting their weight on impossibly high heels. Eleanor, her mother, clutched a tiny designer handbag, her face a pale, taut mask of anxiety. "Where could he be, Amelia? This is utterly humiliating," she whispered, the panic in her voice as sharp as glass. Mia forced a smile, but inside, a cold, sickening dread was spreading through her veins. This day was supposed to be her ultimate triumph. Instead, it was curdling into a very public disgrace. Richard Sterling, her father, paced back and forth on the stone landing, his jaw tight as he checked his Patek Philippe watch for the 10th time in as many minutes. More than just money had been poured into this wedding. Their reputation, their social standing, their entire future was invested in this day. Every important person they knew was here. Business partners, investors, distant relatives, who only appeared for major events. All of them were now witnesses to this agonizing, shameful wait. Mia could feel their eyes on her, and she knew that behind the polite masks of concern, there was a gleam of morbid curiosity, even satisfaction. She felt like an actress on a stage, trapped in a spotlight, every nervous breath and trembling finger analysed by the crowd. The boning of her gown dug into her ribs, making it hard to breathe. "Where are you, Ethan? What happened?" Her mind raced through a Rolodex of catastrophes, a car crash on the FDR Drive, a sudden medical emergency. But the most terrifying thought, the one she kept pushing away, was the simplest and most cruel. He had changed his mind. The tension was so thick it felt suffocating when a sputtering, rattling sound echoed from the direction of Park Drive. To the stunned silence of the assembled guests, a beat-up, rust-coloured 1980s Ford Escort limped towards the elegant drop-off area, usually reserved for limousines and black-town cars. The engine coughed, choked, and finally died, releasing a plume of greasy blue smoke into the pristine air. A collective gasp went through the crowd. For a moment there was absolute silence, broken only by the frantic clicking of a photographer's camera capturing the unbelievable scene. The driver's side door creaked open with a groan of protesting metal, and Ethan emerged, but it wasn't the Ethan she knew. He was wearing a cheap, baggy polyester suit in a sad shade of grey, In his hand, he clutched a pathetic bouquet of 3 slightly wilted carnations from a corner bodega. Mia froze, her mind refusing to process what her eyes were seeing. This had to be a joke, a prank, some kind of elaborate twisted performance art. From the passenger side of the decrepit car, a man in a faded tracksuit and a woman in a simple worn-out floral dress emerged, blinking in the bright sunlight. They looked around at the opulent setting and the expensively dressed crowd with wide, terrified eyes, as if they had accidentally wandered onto a movie set. This must be some kind of avant-garde entrance, one of Mia's bridesmaids whispered loudly, trying to find a logical explanation. A nervous buzz rippled through the guests. Ethan, however, seemed oblivious to the dozens of shocked stares fixed on him. He walked directly toward Mia, his expression serious, his step steady. He stopped in front of her and held out the sad little bouquet. "Sorry I'm late, sweetheart," he said, his voice calm, as if he were merely late for a coffee date. Traffic was a nightmare. Mia stared at him, then at the wilted flowers, then at the ridiculous suit. The perfect, stable, beautiful world she had so carefully constructed was cracking apart right before her eyes. She could feel a hot flush of shame creeping up her neck, burning her cheeks. "Ethan, what is this? What is this circus?" Mia hissed, fighting to keep her voice from trembling with rage. She slapped his hand away and the carnations fell to the stone floor. "Is this some kind of stupid joke? Where is your driver? Where are your parents?" Her voice was a raw, desperate whisper. "Mia, calm down," he said softly, his placid demeanour only fueling her fury. "It's not a joke. This is me, the real me. And those are my parents," he said, nodding toward the bewildered couple huddled by the rusty car. "I don't own a development company. I'm a mechanic from Queens. This is my car. I couldn't tell you the truth before. I was afraid you wouldn't love me for who I am." Every word was a physical blow. A mechanic, from Queens, a Ford Escort, parents in tracksuits. Her entire future, a glittering penthouse overlooking the park, summers in the Hamptons, a life of effortless luxury, it all evaporated in that single, horrifying moment. A mask of pure disbelief twisted Mia's beautiful features into something ugly. You liar! "You lied to me this whole time," she shrieked, all pretense of composure gone. The carefully crafted image of the perfect bride shattered into a million pieces. "You decided to humiliate me, in front of all my friends, in front of my parents, on the most important day of my life." Hot tears of fury and shame streamed down her face, carving black tracks through her flawless makeup. "Mia, listen, money isn't everything," he started, reaching for her, but she recoiled as if he were toxic. "Not everything? Are you kidding me? You lied about your entire life. You let me believe we had a future, and it was all fake. Did you really think I would marry some broke mechanic? You don't know me at all." She shoved him hard, sending him stumbling back a step. The guests were frozen, a silent audience to a drama more shocking than anything they could have imagined. Out of the corner of her eye, Mia saw her maid of honor raising her iPhone, the small red light indicating it was recording. "The wedding is off!" Mia screamed, her voice cracking with hysteria. The words echoed across the terrace, stark and final. Without a second glance, she turned and ran, tripping over the hem of her own extravagant gown, fleeing from Ethan, from the crowd, from the smoking ruin of her life. She didn't know where she was going, she just ran. She could hear her mother's frantic cry, "Amelia, wait!" But she couldn't stop. The pristine white silk dragged across the dirty pavement of a park path. Onlookers, tourists, and joggers stared in bewilderment at the sight of a runaway bride, sobbing uncontrollably. She didn't care. The humiliation was a physical pain, so intense she felt she might actually die from it. Her world had narrowed to the frantic pounding of her heart and the ragged sound of her own sobs. Her perfect fairy tale had ended before it even began, transforming into her worst possible nightmare. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out, finally collapsing onto a deserted bench, her body shaking with silent, racking grief. Meanwhile, back at the terrace, the second act of the tragedy was unfolding. Richard Sterling, his face as white as a sheet, strode up to Ethan. You little punk! What have you done? He growled, his hands clenched into tight fists. Ethan looked him straight in the eye, his expression calm. I just showed your daughter the truth. He reached into the inside pocket of his cheap jacket and pulled out a thick bank envelope. He held it out to Richard. This should cover all the expenses for today, with interest. I never intended to defraud you. Richard stared at the envelope with pure contempt and slapped it out of Ethan's hand. Crisp $100 bills scattered across the stone steps like fallen leaves. Get out of my sight! I never want to see your face again! You worthless nobody, he bellowed. Ethan didn't say a word. He simply turned, walked back to his parents, helped them into the rusty car, and with another sputtering cough, drove away, leaving a trail of shame, confusion, and shattered dreams in his wake. 3 months passed, 3 months that felt like a lifetime, and completely destroyed the Sterling family. The day after the disastrous wedding, Richard Sterling suffered a massive stroke. The right side of his body was paralysed. His world and theirs collapsed overnight. The powerful, energetic patriarch of the family was reduced to a helpless invalid, confined to a hospital bed. Eleanor, abandoning their business, spent every waking moment by his side, her life becoming a blur of sterile corridors that smelled of antiseptic and despair. Their boutique, Eleanor's, their pride and joy, was left rudderless. Business plummeted. A manager hired in a panic turned out to be a thief, vanishing with a week's worth of cash receipts and leaving behind a cruel note saying she had no interest in going down with a sinking ship. The foundation of their perfect life had crumbled, and they were in free fall with no safety net in sight. Mia was finishing her final semester at Parsons, but her life there had become a living hell. The video of her public meltdown had gone viral among the student body. She was a meme, a punchline. They called her the Bethesda Bride. People she had known for years now avoided her in the hallways, whispering behind her back, labelling her a gold digger who got played at her own game. Her closest friends, the ones she had brunched and partied with, suddenly stopped answering her calls. Their glamorous, carefree world no longer had room for her, with her constant cloud of depression and the stench of family tragedy clinging to her. Mia retreated into a shell of misery. She blamed Ethan for his cruel deception. She blamed her parents for raising her to value wealth above all else. She blamed the world for its unfairness. But deep down, in the quiet, lonely hours of the night, she knew who was really to blame. Her own shrieked words, "The wedding is off," now echoed in her mind like a curse that had ruined not only her own future, but her father's health as well. One evening, Eleanor walked into Mia's bedroom without knocking. She looked exhausted, her face etched with lines of worry that hadn't been there months ago. Mia was lying in bed, numbly scrolling through her phone, watching other people live the life she had lost. "Amelia," her mother said, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. "We need to talk. If you're going to blame me for Dad's stroke again, just don't," Mia replied wearily, not looking up. "I'm not here to blame you," Eleanor said, her voice firm, almost cold. "I'm here to tell you the facts. The money is almost gone. Every cent is going to your father's medical bills and rehabilitation. The business is on the verge of bankruptcy. The staff is quitting. Tomorrow you will start working at the store." Mia sat bolt upright. "What? Me? As a sales girl? Mom, are you serious? I'm a designer. I just graduated from Parsons." "Your Parsons degree isn't going to pay the rent on Madison Avenue, Amelia." Eleanor cut her off, her eyes filled not with sympathy, but with a weary, steely resolve. "You have lived your entire life in a fantasy world that your father and I built for you. That world is gone now. Welcome to reality. I expect you at the store at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. This is not a discussion." Her mother turned and left the room, leaving Mia in a silence that was more deafening than any shouting match. A salesgirl, in their plus-size boutique, She, Amelia Sterling, would be fetching size 20 trousers and forcing a smile for difficult customers. Tears of humiliation and powerlessness stung her eyes. This felt like the end of everything. Her brilliant, sparkling future, the one she had always taken for granted, had been reduced to ashes. The next morning, Mia walked into Eleanor's with her head held low. The air inside smelled of new textiles and a faint layer of dust. The clothes hanging on the rack seemed enormous and shapeless to her. Behind the counter stood Brenda, a kind-faced woman in her late 50s who had worked for her parents for over 20 years. "Hello, Mia, honey," she said, with a warm, gentle smile. "Your mother called. Don't you worry about a thing. I'll show you the ropes." Mia wanted to burst into tears. Show her the ropes. The ropes of what? How to cater to people. How to plaster a fake smile on her face all day. Her mother gave her a brief, cold orientation. "Brenda will explain everything. You listen to her. You are not the owner's daughter here. You are an intern." Then she left for the hospital, leaving Mia alone in this foreign world, feeling utterly lost, stripped of her identity, and profoundly humiliated. The first week was a form of torture. Mia didn't know the inventory. She constantly mixed up sizing charts, and she couldn't find anything in the cavernous stockroom. The customers grated on her nerves. She felt their eyes on her, judging her, some of them clearly recognizing her from the infamous wedding video. One afternoon, a loud, demanding woman came in, asking for something fabulous to make my ex-husband jealous. Mia looked at the woman's large frame with a veiled sense of disgust, mechanically pulling one dress after another without enthusiasm. "Excuse me, miss, but you look like you're doing me a huge favour just by being here," the customer snapped. "Get me someone else." Brenda had to step in and smooth things over. That evening, as Mia was refolding sweaters in the stockroom, she wept silently from sheer frustration and exhaustion. She had never imagined that working with people could be so emotionally draining. Brenda, however, proved to be a wise and patient mentor. She never scolded Mia for her mistakes. Instead, she offered gentle corrections and shared secrets of the trade. "You're not just selling an item of clothing, honey," she would say, her voice soft. "You're selling a woman a piece of her confidence back. Every single person who walks through that door wants to feel beautiful, no matter what the number on the scale says." Slowly, grudgingly, Mia began to listen. She memorized the entire product line. She learned how to assess a woman's body type and size with a single glance. More importantly, she started to notice the subtle shift in a customer's expression when she found an outfit that truly fit and flattered her. A light would come on in their eyes, their shoulders would straighten. For the first time, Mia felt a flicker of something that resembled job satisfaction. It was a foreign, unsettling, yet not entirely unpleasant feeling. One day, a young woman came into the store. She was very large and painfully shy, her eyes fixed on the floor. She was looking for an outfit for a first date and was on the verge of tears, convinced that nothing would ever look good on her. In that moment, Mia saw a reflection of her own feelings of shame and hopelessness. Something inside her shifted. She spent the next 2 hours with the girl, not as a sales clerk, but as the designer she was trained to be. She carefully selected pieces, showed her how to accessorize, and created a look that was both stylish and flattering. She found the perfect dress, one that skimmed over the young woman's insecurities and highlighted her best features. The girl stared at her reflection in the mirror, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you so much." She left the store beaming, and Mia finally understood what Brenda meant. She hadn't sold a dress. She had given someone a small piece of happiness. That encounter was a turning point. A profound change began to take root in Mia. She stopped feeling sorry for herself and started to see a purpose in her new, humbled existence. She remembered her expensive design education. She began to use her skills, redesigning the window displays, creating chic, sophisticated looks on the mannequins that showed off the clothes to their best advantage. On her own initiative, she started an Instagram account for the store. She didn't just post pictures of clothing, she created content. She offered styling tips for different body shapes, demonstrated how one versatile piece could be worn in multiple ways, and wrote captions about body positivity and self-love. Slowly, new customers started coming in, drawn by the store's revitalized online presence. They asked for Mia by name. For the first time in a long time, sales began to slowly but steadily climb. She spent her one day off each week at the hospital with her father. He still couldn't speak, but she saw a flicker of warmth in his eyes whenever she walked into the room. She would sit with him for hours, reading the newspaper aloud, telling him about the store, about her small successes and the funny things customers said. She learned how to give him physical therapy massages and how to feed him patiently. A deep, previously unknown well of compassion opened up within her. She saw the bone-deep exhaustion in her mother and did everything she could to help, taking over chores at home and managing the store so Eleanor could rest. The chasm that had opened between them after the wedding began to close. They were a team, united by their shared crisis and a fragile hope for Richard's recovery. Mia was growing up. The pain and hardship was stripping away her entitlement and selfishness, revealing a stronger, more resilient person underneath. Several more months passed. It was a cold, dreary November afternoon, and the store was quiet. Mia and Brenda were unpacking a new shipment of winter coats. The little bell over the door chimed, and an elegant, silver-haired woman in a beautiful cashmere coat and a stylish hat walked in. She carried herself with a quiet grace and dignity that immediately commanded respect. "Good afternoon, ladies," she said, with a warm smile. "Good afternoon," Mia replied, her professional persona clicking into place. "How can I help you?" "I'm looking for a special dress," the woman said. "My only grandson is getting married soon. I want to look my best." Her voice was soft and kind, and her eyes sparkled with a gentle intelligence. Mia felt an immediate and inexplicable liking for her. "Of course, I'm sure we can find the perfect thing for you," Mia said, leading her into the main showroom. "Do you have a particular colour or style in mind?" The woman was a delightful conversationalist. As Mia pulled various options, she spoke lovingly about her grandson. "He's a wonderful young man, such a hard worker and so kind-hearted. He's finally found the love of his life. I haven't met the bride-to-be yet, though. You see, I don't live in the city. I flew in from Ohio just for the wedding. My son tells me she's from a very good, very wealthy family." Mia's heart gave a painful little squeeze at the mention of a wealthy family, a ghost of her past life. But she pushed the feeling down, focusing entirely on her work, determined to help this charming woman find her perfect dress. After nearly an hour of trying on different styles, they found it. A stunning dress made of deep navy blue velvet that fit the woman as if it were custom made. Her face lit up when she saw herself in the mirror. "My dear, you are a magician," she said, her gratitude genuine and heartfelt. "I had almost given up hope of finding something this elegant." She walked to the checkout counter as Mia began to carefully fold the dress and place it in a garment bag. "It's such a joyous occasion, a grandson's wedding," the woman continued, almost to herself. "I'm so happy for him. He's been through so much. He had a terrible experience once. Fell in love with a young woman who, well, she turned out not to be the person he thought she was. He even had to stage this elaborate test just to see what she was really made of. My poor boy was so heartbroken." Mia's hands went cold as she processed the woman's words. "A test?" Mia asked, her voice barely a whisper, hoping it sounded like casual curiosity. "Yes," the woman sighed, shaking her head slightly. "He told her he was just a poor mechanic, drove an old clunker to their wedding. Can you imagine? My grandson, who runs a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire with his father. He did it because his business partner overheard the girl bragging to her friends at some rooftop bar that she was marrying a rich fool while she was still in love with someone else. So they decided to find out the truth. It was a harsh thing to do, I suppose, but he wanted real love, not a business transaction." The floor seemed to drop out from under Mia's feet. A rooftop bar, a test, a real estate empire. All the disparate, painful pieces of her past suddenly clicked into place. forming a picture so horrifying it made her want to scream. She slowly lifted her eyes to meet the woman's kind gaze. "What? What is your grandson's name?" Mia asked, her lips feeling numb. "Ethan," the woman replied, her face beaming with pride. "My dear Ethan!" Mia froze, staring at a fixed point on the wall behind the counter. This was his grandmother, Ethan's grandmother. He was never poor. He was the prince she had always dreamed of. He was richer than she had ever imagined. And she had failed his test in the most spectacular and public way possible. She, with her own hands, had destroyed her own happiness, brought ruin upon her family, and put her father in a hospital bed. He wasn't the liar. She was. She was the liar when she said she loved him, because what she really loved was the money and status she mistakenly thought he was about to lose. The woman, blissfully unaware of the emotional devastation she had just caused, paid for the dress with a black credit card. "Thank you again, my dear. You've been a tremendous help. I wish you and your lovely store all the best." She took the garment bag, offered Mia one last warm smile, and walked out the door. Mia remained standing behind the counter, motionless, like a statue carved from ice. The full weight of her actions crashed down upon her. She hadn't just lost a wealthy fiancé. She had lost her one chance at a real future because she had proven herself to be exactly what he suspected: shallow, greedy, and transactional. And in the cruelest twist of fate, she had just sold the mother of the groom dress for the wedding of the man who should have been her husband. When Brenda returned from the stockroom, she found Mia looking ashen, her eyes wide with a terrifying emptiness. "Mia, honey, what's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, rushing to her side. Mia slowly turned to face her, silent tears streaming down her pale cheeks. But these weren't the tears of self-pity she had cried for months. These were the scalding tears of profound, soul-deep remorse. "It's nothing, Brenda," she said, her voice hoarse. I just realised what a terrible, irreversible mistake I've made." In that moment, her transformation was complete. She finally understood that life had taught her the most brutal, but also the most necessary of lessons. It was a lesson she would carry with her for the rest of her days. She didn't know what her future held. Would her father ever fully recover? Could they save the family business from the brink of collapse? Would she ever find her own happiness? The answers were uncertain, but she knew one thing for sure. She would never be that naive, entitled girl again. That version of Amelia Sterling had died on the steps of Bethesda Terrace. Now standing here in this humble store, surrounded by clothes for ordinary women, a new Amelia was being born. A woman who had learned the true value of money, of hard work, of love, and most importantly, of her own character. The path ahead would be long and arduous, but for the first time in her life, she was ready to walk it with honesty and humility, without relying on fairy tale princes or someone else's fortune. That night, as she locked up the store, she caught her reflection in the dark glass of the front window. A tired young woman with serious eyes stared back at her. The arrogance and emptiness were gone, replaced by a quiet strength forged in pain and wisdom. A faint glimmer of hope flickered in their depths. She pulled out her phone and, with a decisive finality, deleted her personal Instagram account, erasing every last photo of her old life. The expensive dinners, the glamorous parties, the pictures with Ethan. It was a life that was never truly hers. Then she opened the store's account and wrote a new post. It wasn't about a sale or a new dress. It was a short, heartfelt reflection on the difference between appearing beautiful and being beautiful, and a reminder that true style has nothing to do with a dress size or a bank balance. When she got home, she found her mother in the kitchen, crying softly over an old photograph of her and Richard in happier times. Mia didn't say a word. She just walked up behind her and wrapped her arms around her. "Mom, we're going to be okay," she said, her voice firm, with a newfound conviction. "I'm here. We'll get through this together." For the first time in months, Eleanor leaned into the embrace, and they held each other, two women shouldering an immense burden, but no longer shouldering it alone. In that quiet kitchen, Mia understood that her real foundation, her true source of strength, wasn't a rich husband, but the two people she had almost lost through her own foolish pride. The hospital room smelled of disinfectant and illness. Her father was asleep. Mia sat down in the chair beside his bed and took his warm, limp hand in hers. "Dad, I am so sorry," she whispered, the words catching in her throat. "I was such a fool. But I understand now. I'm going to make things right, I promise. Please, just get better." She didn't know if he could hear her, but she needed to say it. She sat with him for a while longer, before heading home to a few hours of restless sleep. A new life stretched out before her, one that was nothing like the one she had dreamed of. It would be a life of struggle, sacrifice, and endless work. But it would be her life, an honest life, a real life, and maybe, just maybe, one day she would be able to forgive herself and find a way to be truly happy. Amelia and Ethan's story didn't have a Hollywood ending where they found their way back to each other. Life is rarely that neat. Ethan married his new fiancée, building a future on a foundation of trust, not tests. Amelia, in turn, devoted herself entirely to her family and their business. She never became a world-famous designer, but she did transform her parents' struggling boutique into a thriving, beloved brand that empowered women of all sizes to feel beautiful and confident. She navigated the depths of humiliation, loss, and regret, and in doing so, she discovered a strength she never knew she possessed. Her story serves as a bitter reminder that chasing a glittering facade can cost you what is truly valuable, and that sometimes the only way to truly find yourself is to lose everything you thought you ever wanted. And so, the masks are finally off. Ethan's cruel test revealed a truth that Amelia had hidden even from herself. Her world, built on the fragile illusion of status and wealth, came crashing down, taking her father's health and her family's security with it. The ultimate twist here isn't that the groom was secretly a millionaire. It's that the bride was exactly the person he feared she was. The consequences of that one day were catastrophic, a ripple effect of loss and pain. But it was hitting that absolute bottom that forced her to be reborn. She walked through a hell of her own making to find the strength to rebuild her life on a new foundation of character and integrity. This story shows us that the ultimate test isn't about money, it's about humanity. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. If this story moved you, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments, what would you have done in Amelia's situation?